Hey, this is Lou Mangello from WDW Radio, and you're listening to the Fiveish Fangirls podcast. Let's do this.
The tangents as we continue all the way to episode 424 of the Fiveish Fangirls podcast. Of course not. You lack vision. I see a place where people get on and off the freeway, on and off and on, all day, all night. Soon where Toontown once stood, there will be a string of gas stations, inexpensive motels, restaurants that serve rapidly prepared food, tire salons, automobile dealerships, and wonderful, wonderful billboards reaching as far as the eye can see. My God, it'll be beautiful. Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Fiveish Fangirls podcast. Sounds like just let's start off like we do with the virtual table and see who's joined us this week.
This is Chrissy in Salt Lake City.
This is Sally from Wisconsin.
And this is Rachel in Toontown. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
With the weather that came through last week, it kind of looked like that somebody had gone out and sprayed the world with dip. So
yes. So yeah. We are back.
Yes.
And
so sorry about that. But yeah. Mother, thankfully, knock on wood, we were not, even though I had 2 tornadoes touch down within a 5-mile radius of where I live, that the actual storm, we didn't get any storm. Well, I say that we didn't get any storm damage. Chauncey and I both got a little bit of hail damage on our vehicles. Thankfully, it's just on the hoods, so we didn't break any windows or anything, because those are pain in the butt to get replaced. But in the process of Mother Nature doing what she does best in this part of the country during this time of year, which is give us really severe thunderstorms and tornadoes out the wazoo, it took out the internet. So
as Mother Nature has a tendency to do.
Yeah, I was very fortunate that I was only having internet issues. I know people that are still without power, and it's been more than a week.
Yucky.
So yeah,
been there, done that. Not fun.
Yeah. Thankfully, they have a generator that they're using. But yeah, I know people that were out without power 4 days. So the fact that I was having intermittent internet outages for like 3 days is totally, a first world problem that I was having. But yeah, the fact that like about an hour-ish before we would have normally recorded last Monday, my internet went out for more than an hour and I had no idea when it was going to come back. So
oh boy. Well, and speaking of, I just barely got a severe thunderstorm warning until 6 o'clock my time, which is in 20 minutes.
Yeah,
lovely.
It's just that time of year.
I think I'm barely out of the main blast radius. Just looking off of this, I'm like, I think I'm fine, but I'm like, just cool it off. That's all.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah. But so around here, it's you can tell who the native Hoosiers are, because we get storm and tornado warnings, and we're all just standing and looking outside our windows. Some people go out on their porch if they have one, or hang out in the garage with the garage door open. And we're just like, yep. Then you get the non-natives that are hunkered down in a closet in the bathtub somewhere.
And you guys are like,
it's like, really?
You guys are like, nah, I still gotta go to the bank.
Yeah, exactly.
To run.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's just the way we roll around here. So yeah, but things seem to be up and running again. Good. Knock on wood. And it continues that direction. So yeah. So now that we're back, we can do things like the news. Not a whole lot of news because, well, I would say because Fandom Christmas is coming up in a few weeks, but apparently pretty much all of the major studios and stuff have decided they're not going.
Yeah,
so
that's a bit interesting, just to say the least.
Yeah. So this year
Nobody
Comic-Con will actually be about comics.
Which apparently it hasn't been in many, many years.
Yeah.
So this will be a whole new experience for people.
Yeah.
It's
So
like,
all the
all
the
those...
movie, the film and television writers are still striking. The comic book writers are not. So comic book industry is still churning out new issues every week. So yeah, they can go back to their roots and actually talk about comics.
Yeah. All those those shiny big budget superhero movies that we've all been so fond of for the last decade or so, they used to be on these little things that were called comic books, which are where people drew pictures of the characters in panels, and they were on paper and they were bound together, and you bought them at these places called comic book stores, and they told stories about Superman and Batman and all the other, and Spider-Man and the X-Men and everybody else. You could hold it in your hand, and it wasn't a screen. Not there's anything wrong with screens, but books. Back in my day, television was called books.
Pretty much.
So there you go.
Yep. So yeah, things are a bit quiet, but I think that's just going to be par for the course for a while because of things like said writer's strike. So
yep,
stuff is not happening, and therefore there's nothing new to talk about. So that is okay. Yeah. I mean, we've got stuff coming, but long term, we're just kind of in a hold pattern. So whatever. That being said, we still have conventions. Those are still a thing.
Conventions are still happening. Even if it's not exactly the big granddaddy of them. Yeah. Well, that one is still happening. It's not in the way we're used to.
Yep.
But yes, our local conventions have been busy little beavers.
Yes, they have. So, Itty PopCon, unfortunately, we had a cancellation, and that cancellation was Michelle Gomez.
Much to Rachel's dismay.
Yes.
It will happen one day. It is going to happen.
I know. This is the second time where she and I she scheduled a convention that I was going to, and then it didn't happen. So it's like, so, I mean, good for my wallet, depending on who they replace her with.
Yeah.
If it's somebody else from Doctor Who, although at this point, I bet, if it's somebody classic Who, odds are I probably bet already.
Well, and what I understand, like cons, if someone has to cancel, they tend to try to get somebody from the same franchise at least. So maybe, who knows?
Maybe. So they've not said if they're, if they've got any, they've not hinted at any potential Doctor Who replacements for her. But they have said that they're not done announcing guests either. So guess we'll just wait and see.
Yep.
So there's that. And then Gen Con, which we are a month away from the start of, which is really scary. My feet aren't ready. For those that aren't planning on using your feet because you'll be attending Gen Con online, please note that now the online exclusive schedule and ticket sales are now open and available for your perusal and purchase. So if you're the type of person that is going to be attending Gen Con from the comfort of your air-conditioned home, you still got to do some planning. But at least you don't have to worry about scheduling something in 2 different hotels that are like 6 blocks from each other.
So there you go. And you can pop your own popcorn and watch from your pajama pants and fuzzy slippers. And So that'll be fun.
Yep.
And then my local convention, holy crap. Like,
busy.
I've been getting emails every week, and every week there's like, here's 6 new guests, here's 5 more guests. And I'm like, are you just inviting the whole world? So
pretty much.
here are the guests that have been announced in no particular order, just what we have written down here. Tom Welling, who was Clark Kent Smallville. Yes, and then we have some voice actors: Maurice LaMarche, Rob Paulson, Jim Cummings, Tress MacNeille, Jess Harnell, Animaniacs, and a bunch of other things. Jess Harnell is like basically an institution at FanX now. Yeah. He's like been here almost every time.
That just means awesome. You guys are going to have a really, really, really good Twisted Tunes.
Yes, absolutely.
That is a really good chunk of people to pull from for Twisted Tunes.
Yes, we're gonna have some fun with that. If you were a wee bit disappointed in a certain DC superhero movie where a superhero runs really, really fast and is cast kind of someone who we don't really want to dwell on too much, you can see his TV counterpart in Grant Gustin of TV's The Flash, who I think is actually much better, and the movie should have cast him, but nobody asked me. So he's going to be there, Grant Gustin, yay. Michael Rosenbaum, also from Smallville. And this one cracks me up. Tony Danza.
Yeah. You know what? I was saying to someone, because I'm planning on going to GalaxyCon in Columbus again this December to see Zan, and some of we've reached the point. Our generation has reached the point where the people that we grew up with are now old enough that they are now being contracted for events like this. So you're getting like the cast of like Saved by the Bell and Boy Meets World and Who's the Boss, apparently, and
so
like all those 80s and 90s shows that we all grew up with. They're now
late 80s late 80s sitcom star of Who's the Boss. He is not just a misheard lyric in an Elton John song. Yeah, but it is Tony Danza. Yeah. So that's pretty exciting. So all you 80s sitcoms fans. And
it's because our generation is now old enough to have money, in theory.
Yes. Well,
to spend on things like this. Yeah, theoretically.
There are other factors that we could discuss in another venue, which is not here. Also, this one, I'm like doing that whole flappy hands, excited dance. Freaking Don Bluth. Now, Don Bluth actually grew up in Utah. I think he still lives here. But he's like got a mansion like over in like Heber Valley somewhere, or in Sundance,
some gated community somewhere.
Yeah, some gated community somewhere. But freaking Don Bluth, who like
again, childhood
traumatized us all.
Yeah, really.
With Littlefoot's mom and American Tail. Yeah, and I still haven't seen Secret of NIMH. That was a bit before my time, but and Anastasia, which is like my favorite non-Disney princess movie. But Don Bluth, I was like not gonna get a lot of autographs at this con, but I'm like, I need to. And you're Don Bluth, he's getting up there in years, and am I gonna get to meet him again? I don't know, but awesome. So I can go. Gosh, you thought I gushed bad over David Tennant. Oh boy. But this is for a totally different reason. Because, you traumatized me and I loved it.
My therapist thanks you.
Yes, my therapist, you made bank on your movies. And, not because I actually worked on them. And then from Shazam, among other things, is Zachary Levi and Asher Angel, who's the kid who plays Shazam's kid counterpart. Now I'm like blanking on the character's name, but Billy Batson. That's right. They were here. They were actually here a while ago after the first Shazam came out, if I'm not mistaken.
Asher was at PopCon one year as well. So I think that was the last PopCon we had before the pandemic. So.
Mm-hmm. And so yes, and then Zachary Levi, he's also Chuck and Flynn Rider. So how could you not love him? So we got Joel McHale, we got Stacey Dash and Alicia Silverstone from Clueless. Again, another staple of 90s pop culture. John Glover. We also have Arthur Darvill. In fact, I'll just cover the Doctor Who ones here because we actually have the whole Pond family. We have Arthur Darvill, Karen Gillan, and Alex Kingston, which I think I missed.
That's going to be dangerous.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure some vortex is going to open with all three of them in the same place at the same time.
Oh my gosh.
Oh boy.
I missed getting Alex Kingston's autograph last time she was here, and I'm like, I need it.
Here's your chance to make it up.
Here's my chance. We got Daniel Logan. Here's the kid who played young Boba Fett, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, so he's here. We also have 90s boy band Nick Carter of NSYNC.
No, Backstreet Boys.
Backstreet Boys. I was a 98 Degrees girl, so I, Backstreet Boys and NSYNC just kind of molded together in my head. So anyway, Backstreet Boys.
Well, both bands have guys that are now doing the convention circuit, so.
Yes. We have had the NSYNC guys here before. I do know that. We have James and Oliver Phelps, aka the Weasley twins from the Harry Potter movies, which I just did Owl Camp with the library, which is a Harry Potter themed STEM camp for kids, and I'm kind of still riding that Harry Potter high, so I'm like, woohoo! And then those of us who grew up with the 80s and 90s game shows, our good friend Bob Eubanks.
I saw that. I'm like, it's so random, but at the same time, I'm like, I kind of love it.
So
I kind of love it.
We tend to kind of get those sort of random.
Yeah,
they weren't necessarily geek culture, whatever, but pop culture sorts of things that the normies would get.
Those of us, our generation that grew up with like the early days of cable. And you'd have like those random specialty cable channels where like all they did was show reruns of old like game shows.
The Game Show Network.
If you were stuck at home sick from school, what did you watch? You watched all the game shows that were on TV during the day. So.
Yes, you did.
Fun fact. So when I would watch cable, well, it was satellite where I was because cable couldn't come out we could get satellite. So I would check Disney Channel, Cartoon Network, and Nickelodeon. If there's nothing on there I wanted to watch, I would go over to the Game Show Network. This is like during the summer. And I would watch, I don't know how many episodes of Match Game and Family Feud from the 70s that I would watch.
Yeah.
And I kind of developed a little crush on 70s Richard Dawson. If you go look it up. I mean, he's like old enough to probably be my grandpa, but in the 70s, he was a handsome dude.
Mm-hmm.
So kids, go look up who that is, and yes, Aunt Chrissy is kind of a nut. And then
I'm still waiting for someone to bring back the Hollywood Squares.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Oh yes. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
The circle gets the square and all the
circle gets the square. Or when Gilbert Gottfried was on there and he deliberately give a bad answer and they'd say, I agree, and he'd go, you fool.
Yep. Oh, and Joan Rivers was a hoot on that one too.
We may need to have an episode where we discuss old timey game shows because those are just good. They're good times. And then one more, last one on our list here is I believe he's a judge on The Masked Singer, Ken Page. Is he? So yeah, I've seen a few episodes of Masked Singer. Shalane watches it religiously. And you guys do too.
Yeah. No, that's not wrong Ken.
Oh. Sorry, I got all
mea
culpa. I forgot.
Yep, that's okay.
So what is he in? What is Ken Page from?
He he is Oogie Boogie in Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh, sorry, I was getting.
You're thinking of Dr. Ken.
I am thinking of Dr. Ken. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, my bad. But maybe they could get Dr. Ken some other time.
He would probably do it. That's the thing.
He probably would.
Don't encourage.
Well, okay. He does. Ken Page does have a musical theater background.
That is true.
You know, sings pop and traditional pop. So that's where I got confused. I'm sorry.
I mean,
I'm human. I still make mistakes.
It's probably only a matter of time before he ends up as a contestant on The Masked Singer. So
that could be, yes.
That is always a possibility. So yeah. But yeah, that's quite the list. And that's not even all the announcements. That's just the ones that I was able to write down really quickly. Like there's still like some anime voice actors and stuff.
Yes.
So
I do know Christina
a couple of TV shows
coming.
that I don't know what they are, like the Black Lotus, White Lotus, something like that.
I'm not familiar with that one. I do know Christina V is coming, and she is a voice actress. She plays Sailor Mars in the new dub of Sailor Moon, and she plays Marinette from Miraculous Ladybug, the English dub, obviously. But it's kind of interesting. I've watched both of those shows, obviously, and it's like, you know, Sailor Mars is the very, you know, sophisticated kind of suave character. Not really suave, but, you know. And then Marinette is the klutzy, clumsy, kind of trips over her words, but she's also a very, very capable superhero. So it's like, she's got a good range. So I'm excited. I would be excited to see her. And yeah, so we've got some good voice actors coming, and just a good variety. Oh, I will say this, going back a few steps. So this is going to sound weird. This is my uncle's ex-wife, who I'm actually still acquainted with on social media and stuff. She's a sweet lady. She got remarried, and her new husband is a super geek. He gets into the Comic-Con stuff. So he took her to Comic-Con one year, and she's like on Instagram and stuff, just saying like, I have no idea what any of this is. But she was so excited because that year they had, and I got to look up his name now. The guy who was the Ricky Schroeder. We had Ricky Schroeder there that year, and she was a big Ricky Schroeder fan off Silver Spoons back in the day. So she's like, there was even something for me who totally doesn't get any of this nerd stuff. Which was just so funny that she would post that. But yeah, her husband is like, he's all into D&D and the comic stuff, and his kids are, and I'm like, oh, it's so cute that all of this is that you guys are doing together as a family. So shout out to her and the fam. It is cute.
It's like, so that's how they get you in the door, and then that's how they keep you.
Yes. That is exactly right.
That's probably why, personally. So you think about it, it's very smart marketing wise to get some of these celebrities, because it's like, you're going to have some kid, your kid, teenager, or whatever. It's like, I want to meet, the voice from, Miraculous Ladybug, and the parent is all, whatever. And then they're going to be like, look, Bob Eubanks is going to be there, and they're like, okay, let's go.
It's like, all right.
Look, Tony Danza, okay, let's go.
Like, you know who all these people are, don't you? And they're like, okay. And then you get out on the show floor, and you're like, ooh, look at all these cool things that we can buy. And it's like, all right, this is okay. We'll do this again sometime. So
yeah, like, go to Twisted Tunes. That's how they get you.
That is how they get you. You go to Twisted Tunes, you laugh your butt off, and then you're like, we got to do this again. And you're like, Mom, you were the one who thought this was just a waste of money. Shush, I said no such thing.
Yeah. Exactly. So.
All right. So anyway, so now that I've gushed about my local convention, and we're still,
I'm jealous for I'm jealous for some of those. So,
well, I don't really have an extra room, but we could lay out a sleeping bag in the playroom.
No, that's okay. There is some crossover. Some of those people are going to be at GalaxyCon in Columbus. So
I kind of figured. I feel like some of them, they like make the rounds. They have a year like, I'll go to this one and this one and this one and this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my thought, at least. So, well, speaking of conventions, although we're not, this one's not celebrity heavy, which count me.
Rachel's a celebrity. What are you talking about?
I'm famous in my head. Yes, InConJunction is coming up this weekend as we're recording this, so the 7th, 8th, and 9th of July. And if you haven't been paying close attention, please note the location change.
Oh boy.
Because it is no longer on the east side of Indy, it is now on the west side of Indy at the Wyndham over by the old airport. So, which actually that is the hotel that Starbase Indy was at for the longest time. And now Starbase Indy is at the hotel where InConJunction used to be. So
don't get them mixed up.
So try not to get them mixed up. So yeah, don't be going to the Marriott East because thinking InConJunction is going to be there, because it's not. You gotta go over to the west side. But thankfully that's right off the highway. So as long as you can navigate 465, you are fine, and it's one giant circle. So it's all good. But yeah, the location change, the schedule is up on the website. Pre-registration is closed, but you can buy a badge at the door. And I will have a table in the vendor hall. I don't know which tables we mind, but their vendor hall is not very large, so it'd be kind of hard to miss me. So if somehow you miss me, odds are you walked by the table and I was at the bathroom or something. That's about the only way you can miss me, I think. But I am doing 3 panels. Which I'm frantically trying to finish the PowerPoint presentation on the 3rd one. Oh, goodness. I've never done so much PowerPoint in my life in several sittings. First panel is going to be this Friday, the 7th at 5:00. And it is from sci-fi to Wi-Fi, how nerdy women have shaped history. I'm very excited to present that one. That is a new panel that I will be presenting. And then Saturday are the other 2. So Saturday 8th at 1:00 is Your Local Library, More Than Just Books. So this will be the 2nd presentation of this one after PopCon Louisville with some tweaks. And then at 3:00
is this the one that okay.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep. Yeah, awesome. There's full descriptions on the website. So
okay.
And then at 3:00 is Lost, How Time Forgot the Early Women Authors of Sci-Fi.
Cool.
Which I'm also very excited to present that one as well. So
very
appropriate for this type of convention. Which is definitely more cerebral, I guess.
Okay.
It's more literary. Yeah.
Okay.
It's more literary, it's very panel heavy. Like I said, it's not necessarily celebrity focused, although they usually have an author guest of honor. They do have an artist guest of honor. 5-Year Mission, the Star Trek themed band is making their return. Cool. So yeah. And they still have some of the stuff you expect. They have the Masquerade, which is their version of the cosplay contest, which I won last year. So oh good. So yeah, there's InConJunction. So like I said, go to I'll have the link to the website in the show notes, so you can go check out the schedule and all of that fun stuff. If you hear screaming from my general area, it's probably because the PowerPoints will not write themselves. I know what I wanted to say. I have all the notes. It's just taking all of my paper notes and just like, I wish I could just like take them and shove them into my screen and just be like, rearrange them in the order they need to be, but it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Just remember, you don't have to have all your notes on the PowerPoint.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. So pictures are good. I am very curious to see how your library one turns out. For no reason in particular. I will say our system, I can't speak for other library systems, but we do a hell of a lot of programming as it pertains to fandoms. And like I said, I did Owl Camp a couple of weeks ago.
Why do you think I asked if I could use your pictures?
Yes. Well, yes, I know. That's why I was like, oh, that's what you need them for. I am on the ToshoCon, which is our teen anime convention, which is just like, it's like baby's first con. We are doing actually this month, our whole system is we're calling it Magic and Mayhem. Every branch has chosen one or two, maybe more fandoms to highlight each week. We're doing like a magic show with a Harry Potter. Well, he's Professor Stumbledore to screw the whole copyright thing. And so we're gonna have a magic show. We've had him here and he's great. We're having a craft activity where they're gonna make Harry Potter potion bottles and a couple other things. I'm not in charge of that one. And on Thursday I'm doing D&D 101 for teens.
Nice.
Sweet.
So yeah, there's people doing Harry Potter, Dungeons and Dragons, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Star Trek. Like it used to just be a Harry Potter thing, but then they're like, well, let's just do all fandoms, and so it's So everybody's just kind of taking and running.
Yeah, that's kind of at least one of the points that I try to make in this particular panel is you don't go to your local library just to check out books. Like you can go to your local library and like hang out. Like mine's got a really cool teen area with video game systems and a play area for the younger kids, and then they do special they do themed stuff. Like this month it's all about space. So they're doing a whole bunch of space related events. So
well, the branch that is just north of ours has a middle school right next door. So after school, all the middle schoolers come over, which could be chaos. But they're teen librarians. They'll do like gaming after school. They will do crafts. They will do they do all this stuff. So like the kids aren't getting into trouble while they're waiting for their parents. Like their parents will come pick them up at the library, and they do all this stuff. Like, and I run a Pokemon Go club where I have these little 10-year-olds, and I'll tell you, I'm getting off track. Sorry, you put the quarter in me, and I'm going.
Oh no,
so
perfect.
I mean, I'm still playing Pokemon Go, and it's kind of hard to find people to do it. So I was like, well, I'm going to just say I'm going to have a Pokemon Go club once a month, and whoever comes. And I intended it to be adults, kids, whoever wants to come. I have been getting all these 10, 11, 12-year-old kids, mostly boys, but there have been a few girls. In fact, there was one girl who came from across the valley. Now, my branch is in the south. We are the furthest southeast end of the Salt Lake Valley. I had a girl and her mom come from the west side. And, if you know traffic in the Salt Lake Valley and traffic patterns, it can kind of be a pain in the butt to get from one point to another. but they're like, we saw this on the website. She plays. There's nobody at her school who plays, and she's interested in. She wanted to come and play, and like where my branch is, it's a little more affluent. Some of our patrons, and then this girl was coming from a sort of a less lower class ish sort of a thing. I don't want to say it was, but these, and if she's a girl, there's this whole there's a whole thing like, oh, boys don't let the girls get into things. I'm like, oh, that's bull crap. That is the most utter.
Hence the other two panels that are women focused.
Yeah. No, like that is the most utter bullshit. Because I've got these 10-year-old boys who are like, there's a girl who wants to play our game. Let's friend her. Let's, we're going to go do raids. We're going to go do all this stuff. You're playing. You're interested in what we're doing. Come be part of this. And it was like this whole heartwarming moment where I was like, they don't know this girl. She doesn't go to their same school. She's from a totally different part of the valley. And yet they're all like, hey, can I friend you? Can I do this? And all this. And I'm like, this is why I love my job.
Yep. And it's good to see that, because for a while they weren't, those kids in that age range weren't as welcoming, but now it's turning the corner where it's like, yes, you like the same thing I do. Connection. Yay.
Yeah. And sometimes their parents, the kids' parents come with them, and a lot of the times the parents like, I don't know any of this stuff, but now they can, connect with kids their own age that know this, and they'll come to because we have a big park right next door, so we got to go around the park and do it, and they're just jabbering about like, what'd you catch? What's this? Oh, there's this right over here. Can we trade? Can we do this? Oh, there's a Team Rocket, and we just walk, and I'm like, you know what? I'm walking, I'm getting exercise, I'm playing a game I love, and I'm helping all these kids, and sometimes we get some adults too, but we're all playing the same dang game. That fosters cooperation and making friends, and it's like it doesn't matter. We're all enjoying this, and we're all helping each other, because there's some legendary raids you can't do with just one or two people.
No, you need a whole group.
You need a whole group, and that was sort of selfishly why I started this, because I'm like, I need people to play with. Jared's kind of like, he still plays, but less than I do, and I'm like, so this was selfishly part of why I started it, but at the same time, it's like, let's just see what happens. And this is what happened. So yes, yay libraries doing fandom things. So I could wax poetic forever, but I won't.
Yeah.
But I really hope, Rachel, I really hope your presentation goes well, and I'm really excited you're doing it. This is a fun idea.
Yeah. Well, if you ever want to borrow it,
I might, because my manager, I was actually talking to her this morning and just talking about like doing like how some managers don't really get into the programming stuff, but she does, and she's just basically like, hey, you have an idea, let's try it. And so there's always a few things. I mean, we always have to take into account staffing and time and budget and whatever, but she's really good about, hey, yeah, let's schedule it, get it on the calendar, and let's do it. And if it works, we'll do more.
Yep. Let's see if it sticks.
Yeah, and my Pokemon Go club of all things has stuck. So all you people out there are like, oh, I played that in 2016 and I don't care about it anymore. Well, guess what? There's a bunch of 10-year-olds in the Salt Lake Valley who do.
Hey, a couple of my coworkers at my other job, I re-downloaded the app and I've been playing again.
I've noticed that. I noticed that. You're sending gifts and stuff again.
Yes. So it's like, oh, hey, cool.
Yeah.
I forgot how much I missed it.
Hey, gets me off my butt and out walking around.
Yep.
Gives me something to do when the drive-through line at Starbucks is really long.
That too.
Yeah, that too.
You can always they teamed up with Starbucks, so if you're at a Starbucks, you can always guarantee there's gonna be Pokemon in either a gym or a stop.
Yep, there's always there's a Pokestop at Starbucks. So anyway, now that we've talked about everything other than our main topic,
that's okay.
Oh, and book club news.
Yes.
Real quick before
speaking of books,
yes. Dark Eyes Volume 1 is our book choice that got voted for July. And our poll for August is Light at the End, Sword of Orion, Horror of Glam Rock, and the Volume 1 Adventures of Charlotte Pollard. And depending if people really love what they heard for Dark Eyes, I can always toss Dark Eyes Volume 2 on a poll sometime down the line.
Dark Eyes is wonderful. I will say that much.
Yes.
So one thing with our particular book club is they're not all books, and unfortunately you cannot get Big Finish audios from your local library as far as
that is unfortunately true. I wish it were otherwise, and it has nothing to do with the library and everything to do with how Big Finish is distributed, and library distributors tend not to carry those. Although if you're lucky, you might find a couple of them on Libby. Not a lot.
Right.
I doubt Dark Eyes is on there. But
and you never know when Spotify is going to add to their Big Finish collections.
Just
keep an eye on those on Spotify though, because I have stumbled across some where they're not complete.
Right. Yeah.
So
where they accidentally forgot to upload a track or two. Yeah, it's like, ooh, that really jumped.
So I'm actually looking at my Libby, and check your library, because it could be every library catalog's different. I see the Zygon Who Fell to Earth, which is an 8th Doctor Big Finish. I'm seeing all the Destiny of the Doctor from the 50th. Okay, these are all audiobooks, but that's fine too. Here's some more 8th Doctor and Lucy Miller. Yeah, a lot of these are Lucy Miller ones. So actually, I think they might have all of Lucy Miller. I'll have to go back through, and there's some short trips. I'll have to go back through and count and make sure it's all of Lucy Miller, but it's a good chunk of it. So I don't know.
And looks like too, Audible is slowly starting to carry some of the Big Finish stuff as well.
Yeah,
which is cool to see that they're doing partnerships. So
anyway, so there are options.
Yes.
But the Big Finish app is pretty good. So
yes.
I mean, you have to buy it obviously, but buy the thing, but you can play it in the app, and it's a nice way to keep it organized.
Yes, very nice.
And the Big Finish app works very much like the Libby app. It keeps track of where you are. So
yes, it does,
which is very nice.
And you can sort it however you want, like by when you bought it or when it was released, or I can't remember the other ones, but
by genre.
By genre. So
or series, however they do it. Yeah.
Yeah, we better look at us plugging all of our things. Not a sponsor, but we wouldn't say
not
no.
yet.
No,
Big Finish.
So,
you love us, know you do.
Yes.
Anyway, back
Googles.
to the things, in this case, feedback. So we got a little bit of feedback from Shalane. So she said, speaking of Pixar, I did go see the new Disney Pixar movie Elemental that is done by Pixar, not just Disney. Besides Disney already did a movie about the four elements that is Frozen 2. Okay, got us there. Elemental was
She's
good.
Not wrong.
She's not wrong. But Elemental was cute and good, is based on different rom-com films. Elio is also done by Pixar, not just Disney, and it does look cute. Anyway, I read that they started filming season 5 of Stranger Things this month or later this month due with the strike going on, and MCU has postponed their upcoming movies. Some stuff has been postponed, some has. It all just depends on where they were in production when the strike started. Is the thing. So it's like, if everything was ready to go and they were already filming, then they potentially could keep going. Although if any other unions go on strike, then everything may shut down.
Sounds like the Actors Guild's about ready to go along with writers.
Yeah.
Writers, and then I feel like weren't the directors in that
there's
conversation?
three. Well, there's
Yep.
three major unions. There's the writers, the WGA, the SAG, Screen Actors Guild, and then the DGA, which is the Directors Guild. The actors SAG apparently is in potential thinking of striking. Supposedly the DGA has been in talks and reached some sort of agreement.
Okay,
although if your writers, but if your writers and actors are on strike, does it, the directors aren't really going to have anything to do.
Right.
That is true.
So,
that is
true.
Yeah, because I was like, I knew there was three of them, and I thought I'd heard one of them and made an agreement. I knew it wasn't the writers, but I couldn't remember who it was.
It was the DGA.
DGA, okay.
Yeah. So, we'll just have to wait and see.
Okay.
So we'll see what happens. But yeah.
And watch reruns of what you got, or or more YouTube, I guess.
Yeah.
We'll just kind of chill until they figure it out.
Yep. One thing I forgot to mention about Disney's Twisted Tales series, it's not just the Disney princesses. They did the Disney not princess movies like Hercules, Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, and Pinocchio. Yes. The Hercules one is, what if Meg became a god? So.
Which I still think they should have finagled a way to do that at the end of that movie, but nobody asked.
One more thing I forgot to mention: The Little Mermaid, Indiana Jones 3, and Tim Burton's Batman came out in 1989. Years later, we got a remake of The Little Mermaid. Michael Keaton coming back to reprise Batman and the Flash movie and a new Indiana Jones movie. Yes. Interesting.
Insert
how the
Robin
world.
Williams gif. What year is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Pretend you just popped right out of Jumanji and you have no idea what year it is. Be like, what the heck is going on here? But yeah, that is kind of funny how that has worked. And Chauncey and I went and saw the new Indiana Jones over the weekend, 15 years after we saw the last one, which was not our first date, but it was our first movie date. When we first started dating. It was the whole reason, like, he asked me out in the first place. He's like, hey, do you want to go see the Indiana Jones movie this summer? Not knowing what we know now, of course. So despite what you may think of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, it did bring Chauncey and I together. So we got that going for us.
So are you gonna do you have any teasers about your thoughts on Dial of Destiny, or are you gonna save that for later?
I mean, I know Holly saw it too.
Yep.
It's good. It's definitely they definitely wrote it with the Indiana Jones fans in mind.
Yes.
It still goes off the rails, but you know what? That's kind of par for the course for Indiana Jones. As much as people it's
a fun off the rails. Let's just put it that way.
As much as people rolled their eyes at the whole idea of aliens in Crystal Skull, the man watched an entire like platoon of Nazis get completely melted.
Yes.
By who knows what coming out of the literal Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah.
He watched people's hearts being pulled out of their bodies while they're still alive. And then he watched his dad be resurrected from a fatal gunshot wound by a cup.
Yeah.
Why are we complaining about aliens? Indiana Jones has never been completely steeped in reality. So
yeah.
But no, it's fun. We really need to give Indiana Jones his moments on this show. We've not done that yet, and now that in theory Harrison Ford is hanging up the fedora, it's probably time to do so. Yeah. So but yeah, it's fun to just go in knowing it's Indiana Jones. It's not supposed to be taken seriously. They, acknowledge the fact that Harrison Ford, while he's 80, is playing a character that's supposed to be 10 years younger, but is still old, and can't.
Yeah.
He could still get into trouble.
Oh yeah.
Just not the same kind of trouble, which is why he's got younger people around him to do the crazier
heavy lifting.
stuff.
Yeah.
This is where I'm reminding myself of the Riff Tracks bit from their recording of Crystal Skull, where they're going, and he's old, and he's old, and he's old, and he's old.
Like, you thought he was old then. It's been 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Just keep that in mind.
Man. Poor Harrison Ford.
Yeah. Yeah, paycheck's big enough.
Yeah. You add enough zeros to that check, and they'll show up.
Yeah. Well, and this gives Indy a chance to have a proper goodbye. It gives Harrison a chance to say so long to this character. So it's just go in with, it's a popcorn flick. Just go in with the expectations that it is a popcorn flick and have at it.
Yep.
All right.
So
Cool.
So that being said, we can move on to this week's brain topic. You want to talk about, I had forgotten some of the scenes in this movie. Speaking of Don Bluth scarring us in our childhood, that I was scarred in my childhood.
This scared this movie, and even scared the living.
Not scared, but even now, some of the scenes, like when that poor shoe,
yes,
gets
right up there,
and it's essentially screaming. Even now, I'm so sorry, squeaky shoe. So,
I mean, it's right up there with the never-ending story.
Yeah,
and the horse.
Yes,
betray
it
you.
almost is kind of like that. It's almost like that. So if you're like us and we're traumatized by the film Who Framed Roger Rabbit, stick around for this week's therapy session.
Yes.
Yeah. So
goodness.
I was a wimp as a child, I guess, because between this movie and E.T., yes, E.T., those two movies scared the ever-loving piss out of me. Because and it also just blew my mind that Christopher Lloyd, who I love as Doc in Back to the Future,
he's like such a baddie.
Doc. How can you? It's Doc. He's my buddy.
Yeah.
He's all this. No, he plays the villain in this one, and his eyes bug out, and he gets run over by a steamroller, and he gets melted, and I'm just like, 4 or 5-year-old me is just like, what?
And that high-pitched voice that he did. Oh,
yes. I'm like, Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny and all these things, and I'm like, no, don't let me, no. Oh gosh, I was such a wimp. I don't know. So I guess some of us just weren't cut out for being children of the 80s. That's why I was born midway through the decade, so I could get out of there before I could get to the 90s, where they're a little softer and gentler with us. Although maybe not that much.
Yeah.
So Who Framed Roger Rabbit, everybody?
Yes. Which based on a book, a novel called Who Censored Roger Rabbit by Gary Wolfe.
Although it's
the book is, I mean, it's not for kids because Roger's actually the one that gets killed in the book. Spoilers.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So
this is more like, this is like how Princess and the Frog was supposedly inspired by The Frog Princess by Edie Baker. Yeah. And that they took inspiration from it, but it's not really based on it.
Yeah, so it's so while like the characters' names are still the same, that's about it. Although also in the book they're comic strip characters, not cartoons. But yeah, there's a
but if you are going to take the chance and to put Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny, the Disney cartoons and the Looney Tunes together, which was unheard of forever for so many years, and it's still unheard of other than this movie. It's like, how, like now as an adult, and I look at this movie, I'm like, I have no idea how you did that. Like, there was some divine intervention on your side, I guess, or something, because this just, Warner Brothers and Disney and who else? Like, I don't know who all else had their characters in there, but they're all playing nice for at least this movie. And it's just like
it was, and a lot of it just came down to Disney and Warner Brothers agreed that their main, the others, they weren't still concerned about, but when it came to Mickey and Bugs Bunny, they were to appear on screen and have the exact same amount of screen time. Yes. That was the only way it was going to happen. Yep. So,
although the end, Porky Pig does his "That's all, folks," but Tinkerbell gets the last word, and she does a little thing.
Yes.
So this one in I don't want to say this one actually saved Walt Disney Animation, but it played a huge role because, the 80s, we've talked about how there was a bit of there was a dip at the animation studios, and it was in danger. Pardon the pun. It was animation studios at Disney were in grave danger of getting shut down. It was just, it was going to happen. They had no money. They lost a ton of cash on Black Cauldron. And this was like, it's got to perform, or, Katzenberg was saying, get it together or get gone. And so they did this as sort of a hybrid. So it's not just Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny together in scenes. It is live action and animation, which Disney had done in the past. Hello, Mary Poppins, among others. But that was during Walt's time, and they really, I guess, okay, I don't know whenever Bed Knobs and Broomsticks came out, but they really hadn't done a really big innovative movie like this since Walt's passing, I would say. And there was
I mean, that was kind of Walt's bread and butter when he first started, as with the his early forays into filmmaking was doing the Alice adventures, which was combining live action with animation. So all the way back to the 30s and 40s, Walt proved that could be done.
And it was a big deal, but I don't know. They just really hadn't had a lot of. They were kind of hanging on by their fingertips at this point.
Yeah, it was.
And so that's why that's even a bigger. It's even an even bigger surprise that they did it and did it so well.
Yeah. Well, it was the Disney got the rights. Not long after the book was published in the early 80s, back when Ron Miller was president of Disney. And even back then, Robert Zemeckis was like, I'll direct that. And Disney was like, no, thank you, because his previous two films didn't go that well, because this was pre-Back to the Future.
There were some bumps in Zemeckis' career at that point.
They did do some test animation to show that it could work, and they did. But then when Michael Eisner came in as CEO, he gave it the go ahead again. And but they approached Amblin, which was fairly new, which is the production company that Steven Spielberg, Frank Marshall, and Kathleen Kennedy to help produce it.
Speaking of E.T.
Yes, exactly. It was actually, for as much as a pain in the ass he was, Jeffrey Katzenberg saw the potential and how this could be a gold star in Disney's, win column.
They desperately needed. At this point, it needed to happen.
Yeah.
Something.
So, I mean, it contractually, this was complicated, not just because of the use of the characters, because it wasn't just Disney and Warner Brothers, but also Fleischer Studios, Harvey Comics, King Feature Syndicate, Felix the Cat Productions, Turner Entertainment, and Universal to loan out their characters. The contract with Steven Spielberg gave him a lot of the creative control and a percentage of the box office profits. Disney kept all the merchandising rights because that's where Disney knows where all the money's made. It is merchandising.
Yes, and I had a Roger Rabbit plushie back in the day, so yeah, that stuff that works. That merchandising.
Yeah. So, and then there were some characters they never got the rights to, like Popeye, Tom and Jerry, Casper the Friendly Ghost. So yeah, it was kind of in production off and on. And then Robert Zemeckis was hired after he did Romancing the Stone and Back to the Future. They're like, okay.
Then they're like, oh, this Zemeckis kid, yeah, he can direct.
Yeah.
It's like, you think?
Yeah.
So
but yeah, then it was a matter of casting. Spielberg's first choice for Eddie Valiant was Harrison Ford, speaking of Indiana Jones.
Which would be a very different movie.
Right. I think maybe if they were keeping closer to the book, then maybe.
Yeah.
Where Eddie Valiant really has no sense of humor whatsoever in the movie. The book is really a noir, so it's very dark.
Yeah.
But
even as it is with Bob Hoskins, I think that worked because Eddie is just so dour, and I mean he has reason to be, as you find out in the movie. But he's just so dour and humorless. But later on, he does have to be funny and cartoonish and all these things, at the end. So I could not see Harrison Ford doing that scene at the end where he's like, he's juggling and playing, singing,
doing
and making jokes.
Song and dance number, essentially.
Song and dance number. Yeah, I don't. I mean, I don't doubt Harrison Ford would try it. It would look weird. Because we love Harrison Ford, but there are just some things I'm just like, nah, I don't think so. But Bob Hoskins, absolutely. That's the guy who played Smee.
Yeah. So Chevy Chase was Spielberg's second choice, but he wasn't interested. Harrison Ford wanted too much money. Bill Murray was considered. But the offer, he had never actually got an offer. Which in the grand scheme of things is probably a good thing. Eddie Murphy turned it down because he didn't understand it. So it was, this is the late 80s, so it's like a who's who. Robin Williams, Robert Redford, Jack Nicholson, Sylvester Stallone, Edward James Olmos, Wallace Shawn, Ed Harris, Charles Don, it's like all of these. But and then ultimately they landed on Bob Hoskins. So
you've either got someone who's too good, too much the dramatic, kind of more dour, grumpy faced, I guess, type. And then you got some that are too much the comedy. And it's like you need somebody who does both and can do both. And I feel like I mean, and those are all good actors for what they do. They're all great. I have no complaint about them. But for this particular part, I'm like, you gotta have someone who's like right down the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, thank goodness for Bob Hoskins, because
woo,
I think he owned that character.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he did. It is very much. He is Eddie Valiant. And then Charles Fleischer, who does the voice of Roger Rabbit. Well, we'll talk about their production, how they did production here. Kathleen Turner, while not credited, was the speaking voice of Jessica Rabbit. Apparently Tim Curry auditioned for the role of Judge Doom, but was rejected because they found him too scary.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, Christopher Lee was considered, but he turned it down. John Cleese was interested, but he was deemed not scary enough. And really, Christopher Lloyd was hired because he'd work with Zemeckis on Back to the Future.
Yeah, I mean, Christopher Lloyd is like, I love him. I love him dearly. He's always going to be Doc to me.
Mm-hmm.
And he is such a great character actor, and I feel like, you know, those kinds of over the top roles, that's like that's his bread and butter, honestly, and that's why he is so well regarded and so beloved, and that he does all those things. It's like, you're awesome, even though you scared the crap out of me when I was 5.
Yeah, and he had shown that he could do, you know, kind of campy-ish villains.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he did play Klingon in Star Trek.
Yes, he did.
Star Trek 3. So
Star Trek 3. Yep.
Yeah. They're evil, but they're fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the cast is of course the voice cast is kind of, you know, who's who of voice actors. There's going to be a lot of names in there you're going to recognize from.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, either they were using audio from for characters, like they used some of Mel Blanc's voice, but in some cases they couldn't get the rights necessarily, so they had to get somebody else to step in. But you know, you've also got you've got Bill Farmer as Goofy.
Oh, yeah.
He's been the voice of Goofy for forever. Nancy Cartwright, all these, Frank Welker. So you got your who's who of voice actors from then and still now in some cases. So Jim Cummings, he's one of the Bullets.
Yep.
So
and you know, this movie I consider something. Now it's not, I mean, you got Mel Blanc, which is like, I think this is his last film outing as Bugs Bunny. I think they did like one more thing before he passed away, but it was for TV. But this is really just sort of a love letter to those cartoons from the 40s and 50s that even like some of us who, you know, were little kids in the 80s and 90s, like I watched, I don't know how many times I had this video VHS tape of Goofy cartoons and another one of like Donald Duck and things, but like we watched all those Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and Goofy, and then the Looney Tunes were on Saturday morning cartoons. Like we knew these cartoons. I didn't know that they were so old, even at that time that they were originally made in the 40s and 50s. But these were still part of my childhood and my growing up years. So it kind of feels like we're getting a nice send off for some of them, that, you know, some of the actors, or, you know, their work, some of it already passed on, but, you know, some of the actors, they were so old and we were about to lose them. But here have one last hurrah, so we have something for us to, you know, look fondly on, and like, oh, you came back for this and you were able to do this. And, you know, this is considered, that time is considered a golden age of animation. And, you know, we've had Renaissance and other things throughout the years, but these are the ones that they, you know, without Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny, we don't have, you know, the cartoons, the animation that we have today. even. And I feel like this is like, there's, I don't want to get too grandiose here, but literally you are standing on the shoulders of giants here. And these are the people who made Everybody Loves Animation in one way or other. This is who made it possible and who got that going. And I just am like, of course, like bring them out in this big, huge event movie. And that's how you got to send them off, because how else could you say thank you and celebrate what they've accomplished even. So it's just a very special thing when I read. I mean, like I said, I was a little kid when this movie came out. I didn't know anything, any different. But since I've grown up and I've read about the production and who was involved and what it took to get these characters and some of these actors to come in and do this, it's just like, this is just the biggest, heartwarming moment that you could conceive of. And it's great. It's wonderful. And I just love that there's just so much love and devotion to this work, basically.
Yeah. So and actually we would have gotten like Christopher Lloyd if they hadn't come up actually with the idea of Judge Doom, because he was completely made up. He was not from the source material.
Yeah.
So and they had like some stuff that was going to be kind of gags that ended up getting cut, because it's for technical reasons. But eventually they got their script, and then it was a matter of production, which they've got the behind the scenes kind of feature that's on the DVD. It is on Disney Plus as one of the extras. So you can see it. It's like 30 minutes or something like that, but it shows how exactly they were able to pull this off. Considering the technology they had at the time, it's actually really, it's different the way they did it compared to some others. You'll see a lot of behind the scenes stuff where like, you got a character that maybe is supposed to be looking like a monster, and what they'll do is they'll have like a stick with a tennis ball on the end of it, so it gives them a bit of an idea of where their eye line should be. But it's not necessarily the most it's not the most exciting thing to act against. You will hear some actors say. So what they did is for a lot of the stuff with the tunes, especially Roger, who had to physically interact with both Hoskins and Lloyd a lot, is they made this 2-scale rubber model of Roger so that Bob Hoskins could grab him by the ears, or Christopher Lloyd could grab him by the neck and see exactly where the character's eyes are and approximately how much space you have from to their feet, that sort of thing. So it's really quite impressive to watch them do stage scenes with this giant rubber Roger, and then they get the pacing down and the sight lines and everything, and they would just pluck the rubber Roger out, and Bob Hoskins could just do the exact same thing because it becomes muscle memory. But then they could just draw Roger right in, and it fits perfectly. And then it also helped that what's his face, the voice of Roger, Charles Fleischer, got a Roger costume made and would stand there off stage and do the voice, so that he would have, so like Bob Hoskins would hear Roger talking back to him.
Have a little more to act off of.
Yes. Yeah. And he wore that thing all of the time. So it's quite funny. But yeah, they did a lot of stuff with motion control, which would also help. But yeah, or they would do some just like kind of tricks, like puppetry or marionettes, or they even did some electronic stuff with robotic arms, like when Roger is singing in the bar and keeps smashing his head with the plates.
Oh yeah.
They created a robotic arm that could pick up a plate and smash it, and then they could just, rotoscope the electronic arm out and put Roger in there. So yeah, it was it's really, really cool. All the techniques that they used and figured out how to make this work as seamless as possible. And the thing is, it helps that these are toons interacting with humans, so it's not like the toons are supposed to look like they belong.
Right.
They're acknowledging that they are not humans. They are toons, and therefore they look different. Their coloring is going to be different, and the way that they can defy the laws of physics.
Yes.
It's completely different.
Ran out of piggies.
Yes. Ran out of pitties.
Yeah. Hey, Doc, need a spare?
Yes.
Give it to me. Wrong spare.
Ain't I a stinker?
Uh-huh.
Oh, so good.
Oh man.
Mm-hmm.
I know. I kind of feel like, there's that, in Space Jams, there's that gag at the end where, Michael Jordan stretches out his arm and, makes the basket and wins the game. I kind of feel like they probably got the idea from this movie. Like, well, let's make the humans cartoony too, even though they didn't really do that in this movie. But they're like, well, hey, why not? And it's like, oh, okay. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They still, there's a bit of a gray area there, I think, because when Eddie's having, trying to get the weasels to laugh themselves to death, he's doing the song and dance, he's doing things like juggling weights and letting them clonk on his head. So it's like there's a little bit of gray area where stuff that any toon could bounce back from, like Roger having the refrigerator dropped on his head a bazillion times. That some of the humans can get away with some toon-like behavior, like Eddie's gun. The cartoon bullets. Not everyone could probably handle that.
No, but.
Or even the other way around, where some toons are able to do some human things, like Jessica handling an actual gun, a proper gun.
Oh yeah, yep, and pulling Eddie forward by the tie when she's singing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you just kind of don't question it. It's like, this is a world where humans and toons live together. So you just kind of like, yep, that tracks.
It all makes sense, and don't get too hung up on it, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. So. So yeah, it the post-production lasted for 14 months. ILM helped with some of the post-processing. Imagine that. Post-production. But even then, ILM didn't necessarily have everything that they would need to be able to make this happen. So a lot it's hand drawn on animation for a good chunk of it. So this is not CGI composited into real life. These characters are hand drawn, and then they could use some CGI for some stuff that can't be necessarily drawn. So they were aiming for, instead of 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional, they were going for 2.5-dimensional.
Which worked. Like, okay.
Yeah. So ILM was able to do the compositing. So that so that would allow them to do things like layering lighting. So shadows on one layer, highlights on another, mattes on another. And the score was done by Alan Silvestri, like another you legend. Do, because it's Zemeckis. He's the reason that we all know the Back to the Future theme, among other things. Silvestri, under working with the London Symphony Orchestra. And then it was almost time to release it. So by then, Michael Eisner, who was CEO, Roy E. Disney, because it was Ron Miller who started this, but now it's Roy E. Disney, who is vice chairman of the Walt Disney Company. Roy thought it was too actually Eisner and Roy thought it was too risque.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, Eisner and Zemeckis disagreed over some of the bits of the film, but Zemeckis had final cut privilege. So,
well, I think he made the right choice. I mean, yeah, there are some. This was released under Touchstone, so
yes, that's what they did. Is they ultimately released it under Touchstone, so it was a bit more leeway there when it comes to content.
Yeah, so they could still they could still do some more grown up things, but yeah, they're fine.
Yeah. It's fine. So it was Roy and Katzenberg that decided to release it under Touchstone. So opened June 22nd, 1988. So just had the 35th anniversary. And it grossed a little over $11 million in its opening weekend, placing first in the U.S. box office. It was Disney's biggest opening weekend ever at the time of its release. And it went on to gross $154 million in the U.S. and $197 million internationally. And at the time, it was the 20th highest grossing film of all time, and it would become the second highest grossing film of 1988 behind that year's Best Picture winner, Rain Man.
Wow.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yep. And it was well received by critics. So Business Insider called it one of the best comedy movies of all time. Rotten Tomatoes gives it a 97% rating with an average rating of 8.5 out of 10. It is considered an innovative and entertaining film that features a groundbreaking mix of live action and animation with a touching and original story to boot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was still popular when I went to visit Florida, as a couple of you can see in the chat that I sent. I have a picture of me in a loud Hawaiian shirt, a hat, a white scarf, holding Benny's driving wheel with Roger and Benny freaking out.
Yep.
My parents are just like, we'll let you get a picture. I'm like, thank you.
Yes, that was always the best.
And I think it wasn't a professional, but I think somewhere in one of my photo books, I did manage to stand next to a cutout of Jessica Rabbit too.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, and I remember I mean, I didn't go to Disneyland till I was an adult, but I remember them advertising Mickey's Toontown in Disneyland, which was kind of, I don't know, I guess they just kind of made a really big deal about it because it was a new section of Disneyland, and they hadn't done one in a while, if I remember right. But I don't know. I just remember it being like on TV, like especially like ABC, because Eisner kind of took up this whole the whole thing where Walt used to go on TV and like, here's what's this is the thing we're building, and this is the thing we're working on, and this is what Disneyland's going to be. So he kind of did a similar thing, and I remember I feel like I saw it was like on ABC, A Wonderful World of Disney, and there was Michael Eisner talking about here's this new thing that's coming to Disneyland, and of course I'm like, Mom, can we go to Disneyland? And I'm like, and they're like, we'll talk about it.
Yeah. The first Toontown actually opened in Florida.
Yep, that's
at
where
the
I
Magic
went.
Kingdom
in
in '88.
Yep.
And then it closed in 2011. The Toontown in Disneyland opened in '93, and then there is a Toontown in Tokyo Disneyland that opened in '96. The one in Florida was eventually named Mickey's Toontown Fair and gave it like a county fair feel to it, and explained that made it more temporary. Like your state fairs, your county fairs, they come and they go every year. So that made it more temporary because they thought they were eventually going to replace it with something. And then the Toontown Fair just kind of stuck around for way longer than they realized. It's now Storybook Circus. It actually originally opened as Mickey's Birthday Land, and then became Mickey's Starland, and then Mickey's Toyland.
It's just,
and then eventually became Toontown Fair. So yeah, but the one in Disneyland is supposed to be actual Toontown. Like, so if you had followed Eddie and Roger and Jessica through the wall and kept going through the tunnel, this is where you would have ended up. And it is very much stylized in that way. So that's where you can go to Mickey and Minnie's houses. There is a trolley that sometimes is running, not always. And that is so you've got Chippendale's Gadget Coaster, Mickey's house where you meet Mickey, and now Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, which is a copy of the attraction that is now where the Great Movie Ride used to be at at Disney's Hollywood Studios in Florida. So the Runaway Railway is the newest addition to Toontown and Disneyland, and then there is Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin. So it's a dark ride based around Roger Rabbit. So you ride around in a cab that looks like Benny. And the whole idea is Jessica is trying to stop a crime spree in Toontown, but of course Roger comes along and things get a little wacky. So
as you do.
Yeah. So
Honey
I have
Bunny
been
has
on it.
other ideas
It's silly. But it's fun. It's I mean, it's a dark ride. So essentially you're just sitting in a vehicle going past scenes, although with this, because it's Roger Rabbit's cartoon spin, the cabs will spin.
Yeah.
And yeah, and you do have some control over it, like you do kind of do in the teacups and the Mad Tea Party attraction. And there's weasels, there's dip. Yeah, there's still stuff you're gonna recognize from the movie, but it's not you reliving the movie. But it's fun. It's a fun little ride, you know. And it's fun to, when you even, you know, from the time you get, even before you start getting in line in the queue, from the outside, from the front, you know, you can start looking for the Easter eggs, all the nods to the movie. You know, listening to the sounds, you can hear Baby Herman yelling at somebody.
Where's my stogie?
Exactly. There's music, like you can hear Jessica singing.
Carousel's broken down.
Yeah, so it's kind of it's fun to play spot the Easter egg with these types of things. So funnily enough, it's not speaking of the voice actors, because they don't necessarily include the same voice actors from the film. In this case, Roger Rabbit is voiced by Jess Harnell, and Baby Herman is voiced by Jim Cummings. The only repeat is Charles Fleischer, although he's not voicing Roger, he's doing Benny and Lenny, because these cabs are Lenny the cab, it's Benny's twin cousin. So along with a couple of the weasels. So that's kind of fun. So it definitely fits into Toontown. It's had stuff come and go. But it's very much it's the place you go for the kids, but you don't necessarily want to be in Fantasyland with all like the fairy tale stuff. This is another opportunity to have something that's kid friendly but not necessarily fairy tales. So I remember this real small tangent here, but it was really funny, speaking of Toontown, because when they were building Toontown, I mentioned this because the theme park design was my thesis in graduate school. So that's what my thesis paper was about. And I came across in my research somebody talking about when they were starting to build Toontown, how some of the contractors, when building some of these buildings, were struggling with the idea that it wasn't all like straight lines and right angles, that stuff was supposed to be like cockeyed and weird shapes because it's cartoons. So they literally had to take, like, even specifically drawn out in the blueprints and stuff, some of the contractors were just not getting it, so they literally had to take little models of some of the buildings out to the construction site and say, look, Mickey's roof is curved.
Mm-hmm.
Look how bulbous and round it is. You're not going to be using, your right angles here. Sorry. Come on. Let's get this going here. So, but I was like, you'll learn to become a builder, and
Yep.
you can make stuff look like it's off. And I'm sure in some cases they did, because I'm sure for safety reasons they still have to build things a certain way.
Yeah.
But there's still some creative liberty there that the contractors were just like could not wrap their head around. Tunes. Even contractors don't get it.
No, they don't.
So, and there's, that's the biggest nod, obviously, to Roger Rabbit over at the studios, though, the Hollywood studios in Florida, at least last time I was there. There is, goodness. So if you're walking up, headed towards the Chinese theater, and then off to the left, like if you're act like you're going to the 50s primetime diner, there is a gray building, and if you look up, it looks like windows to various businesses, and one of them is Valiant, and you can see Roger's silhouette has broken through the glass. So I think that's still there. I've not been there in several years, so I would not know if it's still there or not. So hopefully it is, because otherwise there's not really a whole lot of nods to Roger Rabbit in Florida, unfortunately. So he may have come out as a like walk around character when they were doing like, this was years ago, where they were doing like, they weren't calling it that, but they were bringing out like obscure, not seen that often Disney characters as meet and greets. So he may have at one point, I know he had a balloon in one of the parades. And the song that you hear, like the first, when Eddie drives into Toontown, and then they also sing at the end that "Smile, Darn You Smile," that does play in the music loop at the entrance of the Magic Kingdom. So that is in the mix of the music used at the Magic Kingdom. But yeah, in Florida, there's not a lot of references to Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It's definitely out in California, which makes sense because it's set in California essentially.
Yeah.
That's where the movie studios are, so it makes the most it makes the most sense. So
yeah, it's one that because when they were building California Adventure and they had all those like ideas, like, here we're gonna have Hollywood and we're gonna have this, and we're like all these different parts of California. It's kind of one that I'm like, it almost would fit better in the Hollywood sort of district that they eventually that they were gonna do, but kind of got not finished, or like they had to do something different with it. I don't know, like the whole thing about California Adventure is just kind of, it's fascinating how much that it's changed, just because it was kind of a weird concept from the beginning. But it's like, Toontown, that's kind of that's kind of that would fit better in California Adventure, I think. But Toontown came before the other one, so
yep,
it is what it is. And there's not any way they could pack it up and move. Well, they could, but I don't think they want to. Pack it up and move it over to the other one. But I don't know. It's just it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it also because they put in a lot of like those Disney afternoon nods throughout the 90s. So when we finally saw it, or when I finally got to see it, I'm like, oh man, this is like a heavy dose of nostalgia for me. Even though it really hadn't been that far back, but it's like, oh, these were like the things I watched when I was a kid, and I wish they were still around. Or they kind of are, but not in the way they were. But
yeah,
it's kind of cool that stuff still has a place in the parks.
Mm-hmm. And of course, because Disney had the merchandising rights.
Oh, yeah.
That they released this, that, and the other thing. So there were a handful of video games.
Well, yeah.
So
that was just what you did.
Yeah, there was a Who Framed Roger Rabbit for the Atari, and the Commodore 64. There was a version released for the Nintendo Entertainment System in '89. Hare, Hare, Raising Havoc for the Amiga in '91. Who Framed Roger Rabbit for the Game Boy. There was a comic book, a number of comic books actually. There was a Roger Rabbit comic book series.
Yep.
Roger Rabbit's Toontown comic book. There are graphic novels and trade paperbacks. Who Framed Roger Rabbit, based on the movie. Roger Rabbit Tummy Trouble, based on the animated short. They have Roger Rabbit Who Framed Rick Flint, which comes from the Roger Rabbit comic series. There's Roger Rabbit The Resurrection of Doom, a graphic novel sequel.
Yeah, it's probably a good thing they kept the sequels to the comics and the graphic novels.
Yeah. Well, and if you're interested, like I said, if you want to read the book, there's more than one book from the original source material. That he wrote more books even after the movie. So there's Who Censored Roger Rabbit, which was the original book. There's Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which is just a novelization of the film. Who plugged Roger Rabbit, which is written by Gary Wolfe, that was released in '91. And it is neither a sequel or a prequel. It's considered a reboot. Yeah. And there is Who Whacked Roger Rabbit, also written by Gary Wolfe, released in 2013. Jessica Rabbit, Serious Business, but instead of serious with an S, it starts with an X. Written by Gary Wolfe, released in 2022, which is apparently Jessica's origin story, about how she was originally a human before she became a toon.
Okay, is this like...
It's like a fever dream, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm like, is this like, vampire romance where, the vampire falls in love with a human and they want to stay with him forever, and then...
Don't know. You would have to take it up with Gary Wolfe.
I guess I will, because now I'm like, it's like, I don't want to know, but at the same time I do.
I mean,
like, oh my gosh.
He's still with us. He's 82, but he's still with us.
He's apparently he's still writing. If this came out in, what'd you say,
2022? Yeah,
last year. Oh my gosh. Okay, well,
yep.
It's one of those morbid curiosity things. Like, oh no.
Yeah, he's written other things, but and they're all kind of weird, actually. The selected bibliography on his Wikipedia page, it's like Amityville House of Pancakes, Volume 3, Space Vulture,
I mean, clearly there's an audience for this because he's still writing them.
Apparently, Amityville House of Pancakes is an anthology, and he co-authored a story in there called The Unhardy Boys in Outer Space.
All right, then.
So, yeah, if you got questions, take them up with Gary Wolf. And maybe he'll have answers. I don't know. Apparently he is a avid collector of carousel horses.
Okay,
and he now resides in Boston with his wife of 50 years and their cats.
All right. He found success doing something. So you know what? I cannot blame him for that.
Yep. Oh, and apparently the Roger trilogy who censored, plugged, and whacked are now in audio form.
Huh. Well, there you go. That's about all I have time for anymore.
Audiobook version.
Oh my goodness.
He does have a contact me section on his website. So, if you got questions, feel free to message him. Don't tell him we sent you, though.
Yeah.
Mr. Wolf.
Yeah.
I have a question about this book, about this fictional character and why they do the things they do. Could you answer it for me, or am I not gonna like the answers that I get? Oh my goodness.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah,
it was it's got a fan base for a reason. So Jessica Rabbit, she's a very popular character for costuming. Heidi Klum did a very scary, not intentionally, it was just one of those uncanny valley type things for Halloween one year. Yaya Han, the cosplayer, has done Jessica Rabbit. So I know she's, for the more adventurous cosplayers, she is one that they like to attempt, just because those measurements don't exist in real life in an actual human. So trying to make yourself even look remotely like the way she's drawn, because she's not bad, she's just drawn that way, is not physically possible. Kind of like Barbie. A human being with Barbie's measurements would look really funny.
Anyone trying to make themselves look like any cartoon character, I don't care how quote unquote realistic they are drawn, it's not going to happen, because that's a drawing. That is something somebody put pencil or pen to paper, and they can come up with whatever. I mean, look at
defy the laws of physics.
Yeah, look at anime characters, for crying out loud. Do you really think anybody's got eyes that huge or legs that long? Like, come on.
Or hair that stands up that way all of the time?
Yes.
I'm looking at you all night.
Oh gosh, look at
among
Yugi's
others
hair from Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah.
Even before he's the all-powerful whatever. I'm less like, you're just a school kid, but your hair is like yellow and black and purple naturally. So the whole thing about like, these cartoon characters give people a bad body image. I'm just kind of like, okay, if you're basing your body image on a cartoon character, we gotta have a talk. Oh boy. So anyway, and I just found out Jessica Rabbit serious business is actually available on Kindle Unlimited. So if you have a Kindle Unlimited subscription, which I do, you can read it for free.
There you go.
Oh my goodness.
That's something.
Oh, it's actually like the Sirius with an X is actually like a secret agent dedicated to pursuing and apprehending criminal masterminds. So Jessica starts out as a secret agent, actually, when she's human.
Mm-hmm.
So there you
go.
Anyway,
so I've gone from traumatized to very amused.
I'm like, okay, this sounds like it might be fun. I might give it a shot. So anyway, all right. Well, is that all we want to say about Who Framed Roger Rabbit and the Roger Rabbit universe at large?
Yeah.
Okay, we're good. The movie's amazing.
The movie is amazing. You know, it is.
Some of the periphery is a little bit like,
Yeah, it's very, very entertaining. It's definitely one of those where it's like, oh, it's a cartoon when you're thinking about maybe showing it to your kids. just keep in mind that it is a cartoon kind of, but it's not Disney, it's mystery. Touchstone. Yeah.
I would
it's
say
film noir.
Yeah. Now, every kid is different. Know what your kid can handle. Generally, I would say probably 10 or older could handle this. Generally,
which is probably about how old I was the first time I saw it, and I was still traumatized. Not so much by the shoe. I'm more traumatized by the shoe now because I think I better understand what was going on now.
Yeah.
But definitely when Doom is reinflating himself.
Yeah, that's some creepy like, crap right there.
Nightmare fuel.
I'm like, oh my god, that traumatized me as a child.
So if you just want to show your kids a fun cartoon sort of show, just know what they can handle, and you should be okay. Like I will say this, like I said, Roger Rabbit and E.T. both kind of traumatized me as a kid. Also, I was a wimp. My sister, just younger than me, 2 years younger than me, oh gosh, she loved this movie. She also loved E.T. And I was like, and she's my little sister, and I'm like, how are you doing this? But no, she is like 100% braver than I am and has always been. So it's just, and like I said, my little sister, only 2 years younger than me, she can handle it. I could not. I can now, but back then, no.
And honestly, if you're going to show it to a kid, I would be more concerned about how they're going to react to some of the violence.
Yeah.
Because some of the adult romantic stuff is probably going to go way over their head.
That is true. I mean, there's stuff I watched as a kid, and I watched it, I'm like, oh gosh, this is pretty risque. But then I think back to when I was a kid, I'm like, I had no idea what was going on. Just like,
well, it's like I don't know, obviously every kid's different, but I don't know how many 10-year-olds would get the joke when baby Herman is talking about how he has a 50-year-old libido and a 3-year-old big dinky. So
yeah.
Again, not a word I knew when I was 4, 5, 6.
Yep.
So don't worry that your kids are being exposed to certain terms, because I mean, just be responsible about it.
It's also supposed to be set in a earlier time period, so it is a bit of a pastiche on the film noir movies. So it is some of the way they speak, especially Jessica. It's very specific, to the time period that's supposed to be set
time
in.
period. Yeah. So I know, like all of us are like, and I'm thinking like, oh, I need to get this movie because we don't actually own it. But I'm like, I want to own it because it's a good movie. But I'm like,
We own it. We have a 2-disc special edition, which there are some features on there that aren't going to be on Disney Plus because they're kind of interactive features. But things like that how, behind the scenes, how is it made type thing, that is, at least as we're recording this, on Disney Plus. Because I was watching it on Disney Plus and then my internet went out and then I had to switch to the DVD. So
thank goodness for that physical media.
Exactly. Yes. So I told Chauncey, I was like, and this is why we're not getting rid of physical media.
Yes. So it's always there as a backup at the very least. Anyway. Well, anyway, if any of our listeners want to chime in on their thoughts on Who Framed Roger Rabbit or anything else that we touched upon in this podcast episode, please send us some feedback. Our email address is fiveishfangirls@gmail.com. We will read those any feedback we receive on the show. And you can also visit our website, which is thefivishfangirls.com, and that has links to our social media, all that stuff. And any comments you leave on the website or on our social media, we also treat as a feedback. And then there's also places to support the podcast, like Patreon and our merch shop and a few other things. So just go to our website and check it out. You'll find show notes and other goodies as well. And as always, of course, we thank you for listening and thank you for sending feedback and being our friends on all the social media goodie things. And hope you all are doing well and staying cool this summer for those places where it is summer. And for those of you in the U.S., as we're recording, tomorrow is the 4th of July. So have a happy, fun, and safe 4th of July. We don't want to hear about anybody losing fingers. Yeah. Because your Uncle Leroy said, "Here, kid, hold my beer," before he lit off the Franken firework in the
I know somebody who did that once.
Oh boy. I have a cousin who was known to rig up fireworks with a lot of duct tape, and he had to come out to our ranch to fire them off because it wasn't exactly legal, but we were out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, let's go set fire to our fields. Why not?
Yes, that's how we celebrate freedom around here, is by setting stuff on fire.
Freedom! Oh crap, there goes my arm.
Yeah.
But no, fireworks are a lot of fun. And I will say our backyard neighbors made a couple of children very, very happy the other night when they were setting off fireworks, because we have a pretty good view of the next street over as far as like fireworks. Alex and Lottie were sitting in the window like, fireworks! And I'm like, it's going to be how it is all week, kids. So. And then in Utah we get second fireworks because we have our Pioneer Day later.
It's like second breakfast.
So. Pretty much, yeah. It's like, so we're lighting shit on fire all month long.
Yeah.
It's a good time. Oh man, July. What a month. Anyway.
Awesome sauce. So, and hopefully I see some of you folks at InConJunction this weekend. So if not, stay tuned for at least a picture or two. So this is a very big convention, but we still have some fun. So
yeah,
should be a good time.
That's another reason to follow our social medias, because we put up pictures of cons and stuff that we go to. So
yeah,
if you can't make it, you can live vicariously through us.
Yep. All right. Well, until next time, we shall sign off for this week.
This is Chrissy saying goodnight from Salt Lake City.
This is Holly from Wisconsin saying good evening.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Is that a rabbit in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me? for listening to the Fiveish Fangirls. Please visit thefiveishfangirls.com for details on how to further support the show, along with information on our nonprofit, Fangirls Give Back. We love our Fiveish fam and appreciate all of your feedback, shares, and encouragement. Remember to keep letting your geek flag fly.